Asking about.
Bombard me with one.
Shall I bombard you with a story a day?
Owe me with one.
I should owe you with one. All right. So, Africa's third largest country.
Africa
Third largest country.
That must be.
Go on.
Nigeria is big. Nigeria can't be Africa's. South Africa is big.
Good.
And Sudan is
very good. So Sudan is number one.
Okay.
Well, if you combine both north and south,
Yes.
Sudan is number one. Number two. Go on. You're doing well. Look to the north. Look to
north. Egypt.
Keep going.
Egypt. Of course, I've said Nigeria. These other countries are very small. They're like Kisumu.
Akina Tunisia and those ones.
Tunisia.
Yes. Morocco. So number two is Algeria.
Oh, Algeria.
Second largest in Africa.
After Sudan.
So
Sudan, Algeria.
And then number three.
South Africa.
Country that was known as Zaire.
Oh.
DRC.
Congo.
By the way, if you put Congo, DRC, into Europe, all of Western Europe can fit into the Congo.
Wow.
All of Western Europe. Country so massive, Jalas. When I covered it for CNN, about 10 years ago was my last story, let's say, yeah? There was only 500 kilometers of road in a country the size of Western Europe.
Hey.
Only 500 kilometers, 350 miles. It was ridiculous. But it was done that deliberately. Mobutu Sese Seko, when he was in power, he knew that he had to isolate the country. Because Congo is like three countries. There's the east, there's the west, and then there's the south. It's like three huge countries. And that's why it's been so ungovernable all these years. So, when Mobutu was in power, dictator galore, to the max, people fled. One of the people who fled and started a business in Tanzania was a man people knew as Mzee Tatu. That was his name, Mzee Tatu. So Mzee Tatu hooks up with the likes of Museveni and Kagame when they were agitating as well because their countries wanted dictatorship. And they end up in Uganda. A good friend of mine, his name is Buchizie Mseteka. He tells me this story. Buchizie used to work for Reuters. So he used to have access to these rebel leaders, they call them, rebel leaders. So in the house at dinner, they would have dinner once a week. Museveni would be chairing it. Next to him is his military intelligence chief. His name was Paul Kagame. Intelligence for Uganda, a Rwandan. And then there was this Mzee Tatu as well. The three of them just plotting, where do we take this continent forward? Fast forward, Museveni gets into power in 1986 with 28 men. He takes over, and he's still there to today. Kagame, after the genocide, he gets into Rwanda, takes over. He's the leader there. Mzee Tatu now. As Museveni and Kagame are in power, they're now trying to help Mzee Tatu to overthrow Mobutu Sese Seko. Right? So, in 1996, we heard this story about 12, 13-year-old, they call them kadogos, little teenagers wearing gumboots. Do you ever see those pictures wearing gumboots and overalls and AK-47s and marching from the very east of Congo DRC? It was Zaire then, from the very east of Zaire all the way to Kinshasa. They did that in the space of 8 months, marching 2,500 kilometers in the jungle. Kadogo is just marching.
8 months.
Yes, as they march, they take over village after village after village after village. Very little resistance because people want to change after 32 years of Mobutu. These Kadogos were led by a guy called Mzee Tatu, right?
Who was a friend to Kagame
and Museveni. So my friend Buchi is now covering this for Reuters, and he's there saying, listen, nobody knew who the rebel leader was. The entire world was asking, who is the rebel leader? Who is this guy? Nobody knew. And then a name called Laurent Kabila came up, right? Laurent Kabila. I say, who is this Laurent? Nobody's ever heard of him. Or they said, oh, he's an exile from Zaire, ended up in Tanzania. Nobody knew what happened to him. So Buchi now is with the rebels. He's doing he's embedded with these Kadogos. And they're marching. 3-4 days they're marching in thick African jungle through village after village after village. Finally, Buchi says, you know what? I have to file my story. please, guys, I want to meet your leader. Who is the leader of this rebel movement that they call Laurent Kabila? Nobody knows who he is. The child soldiers continue on. And then one day they tell him, okay, it's time. You're going to meet our leader today. They take him to this thicket, this forested area. There's some camps, tents set up, and there's one major tent. They say, okay, go knock over there. He'll see you. Buchi walks up. He's let through. Of course, they check him and everything. He's let through, and then he knocks on the door. This guy opens the door. And who is it? Mzee Tatu. The guy he used to have dinner with in Museveni's house in Kampala is Mzee Tatu, is Laurent Kabila. Buchi looks and says, hey, Mzee Tatu, ni wewe bana, ni wewe. So Mzee Tatu, Laurent Kabila says, yes, ni mimi. I am Laurent-Désiré Kabila. Can you imagine what are the chances? That guy you met for dinner, 5 years ago, whatever it was, ended up being the rebel leader. So now Buchi gets all kinds of access. He marches with these guys all the way to Kinshasa. May 17th, 1997, these kids with the boots, the Kadogos, finally reach Kinshasa. Mobutu is overwhelmed. He flees. Mandela flies in. They're trying to negotiate some talks. The famous pictures of Mandela, Mobutu, and Kabila. Didn't work out. Mobutu ends up fleeing in Morocco. He takes off to Morocco, the only African country that would accept him. He stays there for about a year before he dies. When he dies, he's not allowed back in. His body is buried in a cemetery in Casablanca or Rabat. I think it's Rabat today. Still buried there. The guy who ruled Zaire for 32 years, buried in a common cemetery. In the meantime, Kabila comes in. He takes over. And then this was 1997. Unfortunately, and this is an African tragedy, he gets into power and he consolidates it to himself. He forgets about Museveni. He forgets about Kagame. He's not listening to them anymore. And they had planned all this. This is how we're going to free this part of the continent. He shuts them out, the guys who helped him in. One day in January 16th, 2001, someone enters Kabila's mansion in Kinshasa and pops 3 bullets in his head. One of his most trusted bodyguards pops 3 bullets in his head. Boom, 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 runs out. The kid is shot, runs out. The other person is shot. And up until the gate, everyone who was involved in this so-called assassination is gotten rid of. The news goes out. There's been a shooting in the palace in Kinshasa. We're in South Africa then. We board a plane. We take off. As we're taking off, we don't have permission. They've shut down the airport. We can't get in. We land in Windhoek, first of all, in Namibia. From there, we land in Luanda, Angola. And we're asking for permission. The pilot is forwarding ahead saying, can we land? We're journalists. We want to cover this story. What's going on? In the meantime, they say Kabila has been fatally shot, or rather shot seriously. He's been taken to Zimbabwe for treatment. That's the news that was coming out. We didn't know that he had been killed instantly, right? The news that came out, he's been shot and he's taken to hospital in Zimbabwe. What? Zimbabwe was an ally then. We fly to Luanda. From Luanda, we say, you know what? Either we go back to South Africa or we just chance it. And we told the pilot, look, let's chance it. Let's fly into Kinshasa. Either they'll let us in or they won't let us in. Finally, as we're approaching and you fly through the other Congo, the smaller Congo called Congo-Brazzaville, Republic of Congo, we got the permission. We can't land in Kinshasa, but we can land in Brazzaville. And from Brazzaville to Kinshasa by boat is 10 minutes across the Congo River, the mighty Congo River. It's a 10-minute ride. But with people like us with 200 kilograms of equipment and television stuff, you couldn't take a boat. Other journalists could, but we couldn't. So we landed in Brazzaville and then chartered a smaller plane that finally we got permission to land into Kinshasa. From Njili Airport in Kinshasa, drove all the way into town and we could see the country was in mourning. They knew the man had died. It was incredible. And then there was a crisis there. What do we do? Who do we appoint? If Kabila's gone, who do we appoint? And the military decided the only person who can keep this country calm for now, before it breaks up, is his son, Joseph Kabila. By then he was 29 years old, head of the army. That's when they quickly appointed him, put him there, and they said, you'll become the president for now. And he reluctantly agreed. Obviously, from 2001 to now, 16 years later, he's still president. So he must have been very comfortable there. But that's the story of Mzee Tatu in the Congo DRC, aka Zaire. A story
A day.
A story a day. Only on Hot 96.